Billionaire CEO entered the wrong room at a luxury hotel and was shocked when he saw a woman he knew with two twins in her arms. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Aaron Parker strode through the Royal Pearl's gleaming lobby, barely noticing its marble floors and towering crystal chandeliers. He was juggling two phone calls at once, one ear pressed to the cell phone pinned to his shoulder, the other listening to a hurried assistant who was trying to finalize the schedule for the upcoming Investors Summit. The air smelled faintly of polished brass and exotic flowers, but Aaron's mind buzzed only with the urgent tasks he had left undone. Today was meant to be a defining moment for him, his company's biggest launch yet, so every detail needed to be perfect. Before reaching the reception desk, he spotted his reflection in a broad mirror along the wall. His black hair, styled with careful precision that morning, still gleamed under the lobby lights. His tailor-fitted suit was immaculate, not a wrinkle in sight. Yet behind his polished image, faint stress lines curved across his forehead. He cut the call short, stuffed his phone in his pocket, and took a deep breath to steady himself. Despite his powerful demeanor, the tension of the day pulsed in the back of his neck. At the desk, the concierge, dressed in a crisp uniform, greeted him with a reverent nod. "Good afternoon, Mr. Parker. Everything is ready for you." A well-trained smile and an elaborate welcome gesture followed, but Aaron only nodded in response, stepping away with a quick "thank you." He made his way to the elevators, where another phone call buzzed through. This time it was a close friend on the board, reminding him of the precise order of events for the evening: a pre-launch press gathering, a private dinner with top investors, then a grand unveiling the next day. As the elevator doors slid open, he slipped inside and tapped the button for the top floor, preoccupied with the memory of an earlier conversation about potential rivals lurking around. Some shareholders he knew would rejoice if they found a weakness in his armor. He ended the call just as the elevator rose. Tense thoughts crowded his mind. He replayed all the to-do lists, finalizing sponsor deals, ensuring top security, greeting foreign investors who'd flown halfway across the world. He was so deep in concentration that when a soft chime announced the elevator's arrival, he stepped off without even glancing at the illuminated floor number. Clutching a slim briefcase filled with contracts, he followed the hallway signs toward what he believed was his personal suite. A discreet sign near a heavy wooden door read, "Presidential Level." He didn't question it. He'd booked the best suite months ago, after all. Standing before a gold-handled door, he slid his keycard into the slot. The lock clicked open immediately. In his distracted state, he thought nothing of it. In one fluid motion, he pushed inside. For a moment, he was greeted by a silence so profound he wondered if he had the right place. Then he heard it, muffled sobbing. Confused, he swept his gaze across the lavish interior. At first glance, it looked like any opulent suite. Plush carpets, large windows overlooking the city skyline, an enormous bed draped with silken linens. But to his left, under a softly lit side lamp, was a small table with half-drawn curtains behind it. There, a woman sat with her hands pressed to her face, shoulders shaking in quiet tears. He recognized her instantly. Jasmine Hayes. His heart gave a jolt that felt like someone had clenched it in a fist. He hadn't seen her in well over a year, not since she'd left his company under complicated circumstances he had never fully understood. The sight of her tear-streaked cheeks and trembling posture made his stomach twist. His own presence here made no sense. He realized he must have picked the wrong suite. He had arrived on the wrong floor, swiped into the wrong door. "What are you doing here?" he managed, though he immediately realized it was a pointless question. He was the one who had clearly walked into her room. Her head snapped up. For an instant her eyes were panicked, wide and shimmering with tears. She stood so abruptly her chair scraped the floor. "Aaron?" Her voice was thick, unsteady. "How did you get in?" He cleared his throat, cheeks flushing. "I'm sorry. I thought this was my suite." He fumbled with the key card. There must have been a mix-up at the desk. Jasmine wiped her face with a tissue and glanced around nervously, as if terrified that someone else might appear. Aaron, still standing by the door, felt an odd electricity in the air, the kind that follows a realization no one wants to face. That's when he noticed the two gilded cribs in the far corner. He blinked, uncertain at first if he was seeing correctly in the subdued lighting. Something about those cribs, identical in size, each draped with a subtle pastel canopy, made him step forward in confusion. "Wait, are those—" She moved to block his view. "Aaron, just go," she whispered. Her composure threatened to crumble again, though she was clearly trying to hold it together. He set the briefcase down. "Go? Jasmine? Why are there cribs in your—" The hush in the room was broken by the faintest whimper from one of the little beds. Aaron's focus sharpened. With quiet steps, he sidestepped Jasmine and peered inside. Softly, the overhead lamp illuminated the delicate face of a toddler, asleep but now stirring. He had curly hair, cheeks still round with baby softness, and eyelashes that fluttered as he shifted in the half-light. Aaron's heart flipped again, but more violently this time. She reached out to catch his arm. "Don't! Please!" But it was too late. He'd seen them. In the second crib lay another child, nearly identical in features, also beginning to stir. Both had an air of innocence that belied the tension in the room. Aaron swallowed hard. "Are they yours?" His voice cracked, uncharacteristically uncertain. Jasmine's face was tight with anxiety. There was no place left to hide. "Yes," she admitted softly. "They're mine." He almost asked if she was married, if she had moved on, if she was living some new life out of the city. But a pang of jealousy and a flicker of something else brought the real question to his lips. "And their father?" he asked, voice low. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, he saw equal parts anguish and resolve. "You know the answer, Aaron." His mind spun, trying to recall the timeline, any sign that she might have been carrying his child when she left. It felt like the world had tilted under his feet. All the tension of the big investor summit, the whirlwind of phone calls, the frantic scheduling. It suddenly seemed so trivial compared to this. Why didn't you? The questions tumbled out, incoherent. Jasmine hugged her arms around her waist, blinking back tears. "It's a long story, one I wanted to share a long time ago, but I knew how much your reputation mattered to you, and once certain people in your circle realized, it just became impossible. They shut me out." He took a moment to steady himself, letting that sink in. Once, not so long ago, he and Jasmine had worked side by side on exclusive jewelry projects for his top-tier clients. In hushed, late-night sessions, they had exchanged more than just creative ideas. He remembered how she made him laugh when he was close to snapping. He recalled the spark that always seemed to shimmer between them. And then, how suddenly she'd vanished from his world. Now he was confronted by two sleeping toddlers who bore an undeniable resemblance to him. Every breath he took felt heavier. Before he could speak again, a knock sounded at the door. They both stiffened as an employee's cheerful voice called from the hallway, "Room service!" The last thing either of them wanted was an intrusion. Jasmine pressed a finger to her lips, motioning for Aaron to stay quiet. She hurried to open the door a crack, intercepting the staff member. Through the small gap, Aaron saw her whispering apologies and sending the trolley away. The door clicked shut, leaving the suite in silence again. Aaron drew a hand over his face, grappling with the enormity of what she had just told him. The twins were his. He could feel it in his gut as surely as he felt the expensive fabric of his suit against his skin. The question was, what happened next? He couldn't bring himself to leave, but he also couldn't find the right words to say. When Jasmine turned back to him, her eyes were filled with regret, anger, longing. emotions swirling so intensely it was hard to name them all. He stepped to one of the cribs and gazed down. A tiny hand had curled around the edge of a soft blanket. In that moment, despite the shock and confusion, he felt an unexpected pull in his chest, like something in him was shifting irreversibly. Jasmine cleared her throat. "They're named James and Jules, both turning 2 next month." Her tone was a mix of apology and quiet pride. He glanced at her, mouth half open, then closed it again. There was a million things he wanted to ask, but before he could, his phone vibrated in his pocket, reminding him of the high-stakes meeting he was late for. The entire investor summit, the very reason he was at this luxurious hotel, had nearly slipped his mind. He pressed his lips together. "I have to go," he said, though it felt like betrayal to walk away now. "But we need to talk. This can't wait, Jasmine." She lowered her gaze. "I know." A tear slid down her cheek and she wiped it away quickly. "I never meant for you to find out like this." He hesitated, wanting to comfort her, to ask more, but the phone buzzed again, as if impatient. Reluctantly, he picked up his briefcase and moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. His heart hammered so loudly he wondered if she could hear it too. These children. Everything he had built in his career. How was he supposed to reconcile the two worlds that suddenly collided? Turning the handle, he slipped outside into the corridor, struggling to regain the carefully crafted composure that always made him invincible in boardrooms. But this time, it was shaky. He shot one last look at Jasmine. She stood beneath the suite's warm light, arms folded, eyes brimming with unspoken questions. And then he heard her voice, soft and trembling. "Follow him out. We can't hide this forever." In that instant, as the door closed behind him, Aaron realized his life had just changed in an instant. Aaron woke the next morning feeling as if he'd slept on shards of broken glass. His mind throbbed with the relentless replay of Jasmine's tearful face, the 2 gilded cribs, the baby's soft cheeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. When the alarm rang, he flicked it off in agitation. The reality hit again with a force that made his chest tighten. He was a father to twin boys he had never met until last night. He splashed water on his face in the bathroom, struggling to regain some sense of composure. In the mirror's reflection, he spotted the thin lines of exhaustion etched around his eyes. If he showed any weakness at the investor summit, it could become ammunition for the vultures in the boardroom. Yet how could he possibly keep his head in the game when his world had tilted so dramatically? At breakfast with his top executives in the hotel's private dining lounge, he tried to put on his usual confident demeanor. Fresh fruit platters, pastries, and polished silverware surrounded him, an image of corporate efficiency. The CFO asked pointed questions about the final schedule for the day, and Aaron realized he hadn't heard half of what was said. His thoughts drifted to Jasmine's trembling voice, the way she had said they couldn't hide the truth forever. Someone called his name, yanking him out of the daze. "Sir?" the CFO repeated, looking puzzled. "Oh," Aaron said, forcing a quick smile. "Just double-check that the keynote slides are ready. I'll review them before going on stage." He could feel the curious stares from around the table. They were used to seeing him in total command, never rattled. This morning he was off his game. Trying to mask his unease, he excused himself to answer a call, even though his phone hadn't actually rung. Anything to escape those prying eyes. Once in the hallway, he leaned against the wall and let out a shaky breath. His phone did vibrate then, as if on cue. It was an attorney from his corporate office. Aaron grimaced before picking up. The voice on the other end immediately launched into the latest tensions with a handful of hostile shareholders. They were known for pouncing on rumors and weaknesses. This wasn't good. If they got wind of children born out of wedlock, especially in the middle of a critical launch, it could blow up into a scandal big enough to threaten his company's stock value. He swallowed hard, muttering quick replies to the lawyer. Yes, He understood the seriousness. Yes, he would watch his step. Yes, he'd call back later. He ended the call, a knot twisting in his stomach. While Aaron grappled with the fallout, Jasmine sat in her own suite, drained from crying and sleepless worry. She had woken early to the twins stirring, rubbing their sleepy eyes. Once they were settled with a simple breakfast of warm cereal, she checked the hallway through the peephole. A pang of paranoia bloomed in her chest. Could someone else have seen Aaron slip into her room last night? Glancing at her half-packed suitcase, she tried to decide what to do. Should she run from this place? Avoid the scrutiny altogether? Memories of the night before flashed in her mind. Aaron's shocked face, the urgent question in his eyes. It had hurt more than she expected, seeing him like that. Deep down, she'd always wondered what it would be like if he found out. Now that it was real, it felt terrifying. She paced back and forth as the twins babbled to each other, occasionally letting out a squeal. Jasmine paused, observing them. James tugging at Jules's pajama sleeve, Jules giggling in response. These two little lives deserved better than a mother who cowered in fear. She pressed her lips together, resolved to stay put a little longer. She wouldn't uproot them again, at least not without talking to Aaron first. Moments later, Aaron stepped out of the elevator on what he thought was a routine stroll to clear his head. Instead, he nearly collided with a uniformed security guard who eyed him with mild suspicion. The guard gave a polite nod but blocked Aaron's path. "Mr. Parker," he said in a level tone, "apologies for the interruption, but I wanted to confirm something regarding last night. We have you registered in Suite 2205, yet I received a report of activity on the 21st floor after hours." Aaron felt his pulse skip. So someone had noticed. I took a wrong turn. Too many floors here," he said, forcing a casual chuckle he didn't feel. "Might have swiped into the wrong suite." The guard's gaze remained steady. "May I ask what brought you to a suite not registered under your name?" The question hung in the air, heavy. Aaron's jaw tensed. "It was a mistake, a late-night meeting or so I thought. I realized soon after I'd gone to the wrong room." The guard seemed unconvinced. Aaron reached into his wallet, producing a folded set of bills. With a quiet sigh, he pressed them into the man's hand. "There's no need for an official report, right? Just a small confusion. The last thing I want is a disturbance overshadowing our prestigious event." Money changed hands, and the guard tipped his cap. "Understood, sir. Have a good day." He pivoted smoothly and headed for the stairwell. Aaron exhaled, guilt nibbling at him. He despised resorting to bribes, but right now, secrecy was a priority. He felt his phone vibrate again, almost as if it refused to let him forget the magnitude of his responsibilities. The name on the screen was the lawyer's once more. He let it go to voicemail. There was someone else he needed to see first. When he arrived at Jasmine's door, his heart thrummed in his ears. Knocking softly, he waited. After a tense moment, she opened it just a crack. He glimpsed the twins behind her playing with plush toys on the carpet. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Please." She studied him, her own eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Finally, she opened the door enough for him to enter. He slipped inside, and the air felt charged with unspoken words. The babies noticed him, their little heads tilting curiously. Jasmine wrapped her arms around herself. "I was thinking of leaving," she admitted, voice trembling slightly. "After what happened last night." He shook his head. "If you go now, everything will come crashing down. Not just for me, but for you and the kids. People might assume the worst, like you're hiding something bigger." "Isn't that exactly what we're doing?" she asked, a bitter note creeping into her tone. "Hiding them from the world." He glanced at the little boys, feeling a simultaneous pang of responsibility and astonishment. They stared back at him with wide eyes, seemingly fascinated by the stranger in their midst. One of them, James, crawled forward and tugged on Aaron's pant leg, babbling nonsense. Aaron knelt, unsure how to interact but compelled by instinct. "Hey, buddy," he murmured, a strange tenderness in his voice. He brushed his fingers over James's hair, and the child gave a tiny smile in return. Jasmine looked on, struggling with her own emotions. "I tried to tell you once," she said softly, "back when I first found out. But your office and your lawyers—" She trailed off, anger and hurt mingling in her gaze. He winced. "I had no idea they were turning you away. If I'd known—" She held up a hand. "I believe you." But the damage was done. For a moment neither spoke. Only the twins' playful noises filled the silence. Then Aaron cleared his throat. "We'll figure this out. Let me handle the investor summit first. I can't let rumors leak just yet. If these shareholders get wind that I have children outside of marriage, who knows what they'll do? My entire company could be at stake." Jasmine pressed her lips together. "And I have my own presentation coming up. I can't afford a public scandal either." She glanced at the scattered sketches on the coffee table, her designs, her future. He placed a tentative hand on her shoulder. "So we keep this quiet for now, at least until the summit ends. Then we talk about everything. I promise I won't ignore this." He glanced again at the boys. "Or them." She swallowed, nodding. "All right, just be careful, Aaron. I'm not the only one who's felt shut out before." In the midst of their uneasy truce, Aaron's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, grimacing at the reminder. It was time for his pre-event briefing. He rose from his crouched position, giving James a final pat on the head. Jasmine walked him to the door, 1,000 conflicting emotions in her eyes. As the door clicked open, Aaron started to step into the hallway. Just then, he paused. Through the narrow gap, he saw a man in a dark suit standing near the far end of the corridor. The stranger's gaze flicked to Aaron and then lingered on Jasmine in the doorway. A cold dread seeped into Aaron's chest. If that man had been watching them, who else knew what was happening behind these walls? He muttered a goodbye, not wanting to draw attention. Jasmine silently shut the door behind him. Heart pounding, Aaron adjusted his suit jacket and made his way toward the elevators. The man in the dark suit didn't move, just kept observing, like a hunter waiting for the right moment. A shiver crawled up Aaron's spine. As Aaron leaves the suite again, he spots a man in a dark suit standing at the end of the hallway, quietly observing. A chill runs through him at the possibility their secret is no longer safe. Aaron stood frozen in the hallway, the hum of the air conditioning filling the silence. The man in the dark suit watched him, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. For a moment, it felt like a silent standoff. Aaron, every nerve on edge, and this stranger, exuding a calm that unsettled him. He considered confronting the man right then and there, but a single thought stopped him. Any scene in this hotel could spark gossip that would spread like wildfire. So he forced his feet to move, stepping forward as if he had pressing business elsewhere. Sure enough, the stranger turned on his heel and slipped into a service corridor, vanishing as quietly as he had appeared. Unease followed Aaron all the way down to the lobby, where morning preparations for the investor summit were already in full swing. Staff members hurried about with clipboards, huge arrangements of fresh lilies graced the entrance, journalists with press badges hung around near velvet ropes, scanning the crowd for anyone important enough to chase. The hotel's grand conference hall stood on the other side of the lobby, its gilded double doors propped open to welcome early arrivals. Banners hung overhead, displaying Aaron's company logo and promising an ambitious unveiling. He had a press briefing scheduled in 20 minutes. The flicker of cameras and the low buzz of voices drifted out from the conference hall. Taking a deep breath, he set his shoulders back and strode in, determined to lock away his personal turmoil. This was business, and he needed to play the part of the confident CEO. Inside, rows of elegant chairs faced a small stage. A podium stood near a bright screen, ready for a slideshow that would outline his company's future plans. Clusters of journalists whispered to each other, their notepads and cameras at the ready. Noticing Aaron, they straightened, already anticipating his remarks. He plastered on a courteous smile, stepping onto the stage as an assistant handed him a slim folder. "Good morning, everyone," he began, casting a sweeping glance across the room. His heart hammered a little faster than usual, but he used years of practice to mask it. "We're excited to kick off the summit this week, and I'm grateful you could join us so early. I'll be making a brief statement on our upcoming projects, and then we'll take a few questions." He launched into a carefully curated overview, projected growth rates, key partnerships, a visionary angle on the luxury market. The words sounded smooth, but deep down, his mind still churned with visions of Jasmine, the twins, the unknown man lurking in the corridor. He stumbled briefly over a sentence about expansion into new territories, but quickly recovered. If the journalists noticed, they showed no sign, or maybe they were too polite to pounce right away. Finishing his statement, Aaron gave a nod to the small crowd. A few quick flashes of cameras lit up the stage. "No questions, then?" he asked, scanning the audience. Several journalists looked like they wanted to speak, but a certain tension in the air kept them silent. Perhaps they sensed something was off about him. Aaron cleared his throat. "All right, I'll see you all again at the formal welcome ceremony." He stepped off the stage, a swirl of relief and dread in his stomach. Before he could make it to the back exit, one reporter did call out, "Mr. Parker, how confident are you that this event will go smoothly, with so many new competitors on the horizon?" Aaron forced a reassuring smile. "We're well prepared, and the future looks bright for our company." It felt like a hollow echo of what he was trying to convince himself to. In her own suite, Jasmine paced the living room, stopping to reorganize papers on the coffee table. A stack of glossy photographs displayed her newest jewelry line. She had sketches, prototypes, a presentation plan, everything she needed to impress the small group of investors she'd managed to schedule later that day. Despite her best efforts, her gaze kept flicking to the door, half expecting it to burst open with hotel staff, or, worse yet, a suspicious onlooker. She'd read about incidents where paparazzi swarmed unsuspecting people in high-end hotels, hungry for the next scandal. The last thing she wanted was for the twins to be in the middle of a media circus. She leaned over, checking her phone. It buzzed with messages from the friend who had helped arrange her pitch session. They were nudging her to finalize details for an informal showcase in the lounge that afternoon. Another message popped up with a location and time. Jasmine closed her eyes, took a steadying breath, and reminded herself that this was why she was here, to prove her designs could captivate serious investors. She thought about everything she'd faced to keep the twins secure. If she could succeed now, it would mean stability and respect she'd never had before. A knock on the door startled her. Heart pounding, she opened it a crack. Room service again. A young attendant wheeled in a cart bearing coffee and pastries. Jasmine stayed tense until the attendant left, worried they might notice the jewelry layout strewn across the table. She covered them quickly with a shawl, then exhaled with relief once the cart rattled away. Glancing over her portfolio, she tried to mentally prepare for her own life-changing meeting. But even as she did, an image of Aaron's face flickered in her thoughts, along with an uneasy suspicion that matters would only become more complicated. Down in one of the opulent hotel corridors, Aaron strode with purpose, searching out an older gentleman who'd flown in from London, a prominent investor crucial to the upcoming expansions. They had a meeting scheduled in one of the smaller conference rooms, but as soon as Aaron turned a corner, he came face to face with a man he knew and loathed in equal measure, Gerald Thurman, a major shareholder whose interests aligned more with corporate takeovers than genuine partnerships. "Parker," Thurman greeted, adjusting his jacket collar. A sly smile curved his lips. "You seem a bit distracted. Rough night?" Aaron forced a laugh. "Just a lot of work, Gerald. Summit prep can be exhausting." "That so?" Thurman's eyes glinted. He lowered his voice. Word around the hotel is you've been spotted in unusual places. Thought you always stuck to the top floors." Aaron's jaw tightened. "I'm expanding my horizons," he said, a hint of challenge in his tone. "Never hurts to keep tabs on everything." Thurman tapped an index finger against his lips, as if savoring a secret. Indeed. Just be careful not to spread yourself too thin, Parker. Investors like stability." With that, he turned on his heel and strolled away, leaving Aaron's stomach in a knot. The man's insinuations were far too pointed. Moments later, as if in response to a distress flare, Aaron's personal assistant appeared, stepping out from a side passage. The assistant motioned discreetly for Aaron to join him near a pillar. "Sir," he said in hushed tones, "people are talking about you acting strangely. Some staff saw you near the wrong suite last night. They're wondering who you visited." Aaron exhaled, mind whirring. "So the rumors are already circulating. Great. You might want to be careful if you plan on returning there," the assistant suggested, lowering his voice further. "There's no telling how quickly that sort of gossip can spiral." Aaron nodded curtly, thanking him for the warning. The assistant hurried off, presumably to do damage control. Left alone, Aaron raked a hand through his hair. The day was only half over, and trouble seemed to be mounting. Meanwhile, Jasmine typed a quick message to confirm her private pitch session, then tidied the suite in case someone from the hotel staff popped in. Suddenly, the twins began fussing, their lunchtime nap apparently cut short. She gathered them, soothing their cries with gentle assurances. While juggling an anxious mind, she fed them bits of fruit and set them down with toys. But every so often, she paused, listening to the hustle beyond the door, convinced that at any moment, someone might barge in. Further down the corridor, Aaron made a show of walking toward the elevator bank, presumably heading to one of the conference rooms. Once he was clear of prying eyes, he circled back down a quiet side hallway, aiming for Jasmine's door. A young couple passing by threw him a curious glance, then whispered to each other when they saw him pause outside a suite. He heard their hushed giggles echo, setting his nerves on edge. He rapped softly on the door, hoping Jasmine might let him slip inside quickly. "It's me," he called quietly. It took a moment before she opened, peering out with guarded eyes. She stepped back so he could enter. They had scarcely had time to exchange greetings when another knock sounded. Jasmine froze, exchanging a panicked look with Aaron. If it was staff or someone else, what if they saw him in here? She motioned him further inside and tried to open the door a crack to address whoever had come. It turned out to be a random housekeeping request, a maid offering fresh towels. Jasmine mumbled a hasty excuse that she needed nothing, then shut the door again, relief flooding her face. "I can't keep doing this," she whispered. "Every moment is like walking on eggshells." Aaron reached out, his hand settling on her arm. "I know. Just hold on until tonight. Then I'll figure out a better way to handle all of this." Before she could answer, there was an abrupt sound from the corridor, raised voices, the distinct shuffle of footsteps. Aaron realized he shouldn't linger a second longer if he wanted to avoid a scene. He opened the door just enough to slip into the hallway, but a vigilant private guard, posted a few doors down, caught sight of him. Perhaps not recognizing him in the dim light or suspecting he was an intruder, the guard strode over with authority, blocking Aaron's path. "Sir, I need to see some identification," the guard demanded. "This floor is restricted for specific guests." Aaron tried to calm the situation quietly. "I'm Aaron Parker. I'm the CEO running the event. I have a suite upstairs." But the guard either didn't believe him or simply wanted to demonstrate control. He repeated his demand for identification in a curt tone. By now, curious onlookers were peering out of rooms, stepping into the corridor. Some recognized Aaron, while others just saw an apparent dispute brewing. Feeling the tension mount, Aaron reached for his wallet, only to remember he'd left it in his other suit jacket. The guard scowled, stepping forward as if to physically escort him out. A brief scuffle ensued. The guard grabbed Aaron's arm and Aaron jerked free, raising his voice in protest. "This is ridiculous! I own half the rooms in this place." The commotion drew more attention, and soon a small knot of guests had gathered, phones in hand, ready to film a confrontation. Jasmine, hearing the outburst, hastily emerged from her suite. "Wait, stop!" she called, stepping between Aaron and the guard. "He's a guest. He was just—" Her voice faltered momentarily, but she pressed on. "He was checking on something for me." The guard, flustered by the sudden contradiction of what he'd assumed, glanced between them. Aaron's face burned with embarrassment at the stares. "I apologize for the confusion," he managed, forcing calm. "There must have been a mix-up." The awkward hush grew thicker as a few onlookers whispered behind their phones. Determined to quash the incident, Aaron slipped some bills into the guard's hand, leaning in to add, "Let's keep this quiet." The guard, accepting the money, finally backed off, though his expression still showed hints of confusion. Jasmine looked ready to sink into the floor. She glanced around and spotted at least one familiar face among the bystanders, a former colleague from her design world, eyes wide with recognition. That colleague watched her with a mixture of curiosity and surprise, obviously suspicious about what Jasmine was doing in this suite with a high-profile CEO. Heart thudding, Jasmine recognized the danger in that stare. When Aaron and Jasmine retreated a step, the small knot of guests and staff began to disperse, though not without sharing a flurry of murmured speculation. Over the hush of the corridor, Jasmine and Aaron locked eyes. They both knew the situation was balanced on a razor's edge. One more misstep, and the entire truth would come crashing out. As they headed in opposite directions, Aaron toward the elevator, Jasmine ducking back inside her room, the watchers whispered among themselves, speculating about what they had just witnessed. Someone asked in a low voice, "Did you see how protective she was?" Another added, "They looked pretty tense. Wonder what's going on." As the small crowd disperses, a rumble of speculation lingers in the hallway. "Who's in that suite with him?" Aaron realizes the scandal is dangerously close to exploding. Aaron awoke at dawn, a dull ache behind his eyes. The previous day's commotion still lingered in his thoughts. Try as he might, he couldn't push away the uneasy feeling that something bigger was brewing. Pulling on a pressed shirt and adjusting his cufflinks, he resolved to appear unflappable, no matter how tumultuous things felt beneath the surface. If word leaked that he'd been visiting a mysterious suite, the sharks circling his company would snap up any sign of scandal. When he headed downstairs, the early morning hustle was already underway. Staff dressed in sleek uniforms whispered behind polished counters, turning to watch as he passed. He nodded politely, keeping his face neutral, but their hushed side conversations prickled the back of his neck. He picked up bits of rumor, mention of an unknown woman, a scuffle in a corridor. He quickened his pace, anxious to reach the conference room and bury himself in schedules and figures. Perhaps if he stuck to work, he could temporarily forget the secret overshadowing everything. Shortly after, a hotel employee he recognized from the VIP section hurried up with a tablet in hand. "Mr. Parker, the guests for today's second session are scheduled to arrive in the lounge at noon. Would you like to review their profiles now?" "Send me the files," Aaron said, scanning the list on the tablet. Then he paused. His gaze caught on a name near the bottom. Jasmine Hayes, it read, next to a small icon. Confusion rippled through him. "Wait a second. This invitation is for the jewelry pitch, right?" The employee nodded, slightly puzzled. "Yes, sir. She's on the list of presenters. We received her application weeks ago." Aaron's heart rate kicked up a notch. So Jasmine wasn't just here by coincidence. She had an official spot at the very event he was hosting, something she hadn't explicitly told him. He swallowed the jolt of surprise and dismissed the employee with a clipped, "I understand. Thank you." The moment the staff member left, Aaron called his personal assistant to confirm. The assistant hesitated before admitting, "Yes, Ms. Hayes is slated to showcase her designs to a small group of potential investors. The appointment was arranged quietly, so it didn't pass through your usual office." Aaron ended the call, unease gnawing at him. He pictured Jasmine feverishly working on designs in her suite, while also harboring the twin boys he had just discovered. Now she was about to break back into the high-end market under his nose. If any detail of their connection slipped out, it could ignite a scandal that would overshadow everything. Steeling himself, Aaron decided there was only one way to handle this. He had to speak with her directly and find out what else she was keeping from him. Upstairs, Jasmine stood by the window of her suite, holding a heavy, embossed invitation card that bore a dazzling gold script. She read it for the 10th time, both excited and afraid. This was her shot to demonstrate the new designs she'd spent months refining, unique pieces crafted with a modern twist on vintage elegance. If the pitch went well, she could finally gain the stable footing she needed for her and the twins. She held on to that thought, ignoring the steady undercurrent of anxiety that told her Aaron might be furious about her reappearance in his professional sphere. A sharp knock at the door made her jump. Hastily, she set down the invitation and walked over. Opening it just a crack, she found Aaron, jaw tense and eyes dark with questions. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped inside. "You're here to pitch your jewelry line?" he said, voice low. He pointed to the invitation on the nearby table. "Why didn't you tell me?" She inhaled slowly. "I didn't know how you'd react." He stared at her, frustration in his gaze. "Are you doing this to get leverage on me? Because if this is about the twins—" "Stop," she cut in. "I'm tired of hiding. I have a right to be here." Her hand swept over the portfolio of sketches resting on the sofa. "This was my dream long before I ever met you, remember?" His anger softened into cautious surprise. She was right. She'd always been immensely talented, and her creations had once propelled some of his company's most exclusive deals. The memory of late nights spent marveling at her artistry tugged at him. "I just wish you'd been up front. We're already in a mess." She lifted her chin. "I'm not trying to complicate your summit, Aaron. I'm doing this for my future, and for the twins. We have to eat, we have to live, and I'm tired of being made to feel like a secret." Before he could respond, a soft rustling sound by the door made him tense. A folded envelope had been slipped underneath. Jasmine scooped it up, frowning as she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper bearing the words, "We know about the children." Her hand trembled, anger mingling with fear. Aaron read the note, his stomach knotting. "Who sent this?" She shook her head. "No idea. But it's not the first threat I've seen. Someone wants me to stay silent, and it's getting worse." He frowned deeply. "If they're blackmailing you, it might be the same people stirring up rumors to undermine me. There are business rivals who'd love to watch me fall. Maybe they found out you have something bigger on them." At that, Jasmine's shoulders visibly stiffened. She moved to the sofa and pulled out a hidden folder. "I wasn't sure whether to show you this," she whispered. "Remember when I used to design private commissions for some of your top shareholders? Well, while researching materials for them, I stumbled on documents that suggest shady financial dealings. Fraud, possibly. I printed everything I could before I left." She looked at Aaron, her expression conflicted. "I never intended to blackmail anyone, but I kept the copies just in case. Now I wonder if your rivals found out." Aaron flipped through the pages, his eyes widening at the details. If these documents went public, it would destroy certain influential board members, but it could also spark brutal retaliation. He set them down carefully, running a hand over his face. "You've been sitting on a corporate bombshell all this time?" She gave a small nod, arms folding protectively over her chest. "It was the only shield I had when I was pregnant and alone. I never planned to use it. But if they push me into a corner, A faint cry from one of the cribs interrupted her. Jasmine moved to calm James, who had stirred awake. Aaron glanced over, shoulders heavy with remorse. "I'm sorry," he murmured, "about everything. I wish I'd known. I never would have let you handle this alone." She pressed her lips together. "It's too late for regrets. Now we have to figure out how to keep the twins safe while protecting both of our futures." She brushed away a tear and gently rocked James, who yawned and nestled against her. Aaron exhaled, the weight of fatherhood, a looming scandal and corporate sabotage colliding in his thoughts. He stepped closer, eyes on the sleepy child. "We'll find a way," he said softly. "I promise." Just then, a brisk knock on the door rattled them both. The hotel manager called from outside, offering a courteous greeting but with a note of curiosity in his voice. "We're conducting a routine check of all VIPs on this floor. May I come in?" Alarmed, Aaron swiftly scooped up the incriminating folder, while Jasmine guided him deeper into the suite. When she finally opened the door, the manager stood with a polite but probing expression. "Is everything satisfactory? We like to ensure our esteemed guests have no concerns. There have been a few incidents on this floor." Her heart jumped. "No incidents here," she lied, forcing a calm smile. "Just busy preparing for the day." From the corner of the room, James gave a little giggle, as though sensing the tension in his mother's voice. A flicker of unease crossed the manager's face, perhaps suspecting more people were present than just Jasmine. But after a polite exchange, he stepped away, leaving behind an atmosphere of tight nerves. When the door closed, Aaron let out a shaky breath. He locked eyes with Jasmine. "We need a strategy," he said quietly. "We can't keep hiding. We'll drive ourselves crazy." They spent the next hour huddled over her small dining table, sorting through the evidence, discussing ways to protect the twins, and trying to keep their roles at the summit intact. Despite the high stakes, there was a moment of closeness when they accidentally brushed hands while flipping documents. Their gazes locked, sharing a fleeting memory of how easily they used to laugh together. The tension melted briefly into something warmer, though neither spoke of it aloud. Nightfall descended, bringing a hush over the corridors, except for the hum of distant voices at investor dinners. Aaron decided he should leave before suspicion spiked again. He helped Jasmine back up the digital copies of her jewelry designs, just in case something happened to her laptop. As they reviewed the final steps for her pitch, the lights suddenly flickered. Without warning, the entire suite plunged into darkness. Jasmine let out a startled gasp, fumbling for her phone. From somewhere beyond the door, an alarm beeped faintly, as if part of the hotel's electrical grid had crashed. "Could this be an accident?" she asked, voice uneven. Aaron's mind raced to the threats. The envelope slid under the door, the unsettling glimpses of unknown figures stalking the hallways. "Or maybe someone is sending us a message," he said grimly. "Let's check your laptop." When they managed to power it using her phone's flashlight, the screen flickered but wouldn't load her design files. "It's frozen," she said in frustration, clicking keys to no avail. "Everything's gone." They shared a look of rising paranoia. This couldn't be random. They were being watched, toyed with. Aaron rubbed his temples. "I'll figure out who's behind this. But for now, keep the twins in your sight. Don't trust anyone you don't know." She nodded, her features drawn with worry. The lights came back on minutes later, but the damage to her computer files had already been done. Defeated, they realized it was no longer safe to assume anything would go smoothly here. He left soon after, giving her hand a gentle squeeze at the door. "We'll talk tomorrow, after we've both had a chance to think," he said. "I promise, we'll fix this." The latch clicked shut behind him, leaving Jasmine alone with her restless thoughts. She moved to the window and looked out over the city's glittering skyline. Tucking the twins in for the night, she tried to keep her heart steady, imagining a safer future. Midnight crept in. A hush settled in the corridor. The twins slept peacefully, and Jasmine nearly drifted off herself, exhaustion weighing her eyelids. But then, a dim glow caught her attention, a thin ray of light slipping beneath the suite door. She froze, pulse hammering. It danced back and forth as though someone stood just outside, searching for a gap to peer through. A faint flashlight beam crosses the gap under Jasmine's door, hinting that someone is watching her every move. Jasmine barely slept, nerves raw from the flickering flashlight that had cut across the floor beneath her door. By the time morning arrived, her eyes felt gritty and her heart fluttered at the slightest noise. She kept the twins close, seldom allowing them out of her sight unless she was sure the suite's door was locked. When room service came to deliver breakfast, she cracked the door open only enough to grab the tray. Every footstep in the hallway made her muscles tense. She spent the day cloistered, occasionally pressing her ear to the door to catch any hint of lurking strangers. Despite the sunlight streaming in, it felt as though a perpetual shadow clung to her. She did her best to keep her sons entertained with toys, soothing them whenever they fussed at her distracted state. While they napped, she combed through emails and texts, checking if any more threatening notes had arrived. Nothing new yet. Still, the anticipation was crushing. Late that afternoon, she discovered a fresh slip of paper under the door, which simply read, "Crystal Hall, midnight. Come alone." Her palms went clammy, thoughts a dizzy swirl of dread and determination. She had no idea who kept pushing her into these late-night encounters, but fear for her children and her own future forced her to consider going. Perhaps if she met them, she could end the intimidation once and for all. As darkness fell, she laid the twins down for their night's sleep, her heart skipping faster with each passing minute. On a low table, she left some water bottles and snacks for the babysitter she'd arranged through the hotel, an older woman who had come recommended by staff. Though the arrangement was rushed, Jasmine had no choice. She slipped money into the woman's palm and whispered instructions on how to reach her if the children stirred. By 11:30, Jasmine stood at the mirror, wiping sweaty palms on her skirt. She tied her hair back in a simple ponytail, not wanting to attract attention. Then she gathered her courage, stuffed her phone into a slim clutch, and left the suite as quietly as she could. Every step down the corridor felt too loud, the plush carpet doing little to absorb her pounding heartbeat. She recalled the previous night's flashlight. Someone had been outside her door, waiting or watching. The elevator dinged softly, ushering her down to the Crystal Hall's floor. Inside the elevator, her reflection in the mirrored walls looked paler than usual. Even her breathing sounded amplified in the stillness. Arriving at the designated level, she stepped into a long hallway lit by ornate sconces, their golden glow pooling in soft circles on the patterned carpet. The sign for the Crystal Hall pointed to the left. She advanced cautiously until she reached a broad set of doors etched with swirls of silver. They were ajar, and the spacious hall beyond was cast in half-light. The chandeliers overhead were dimmed, leaving only the faint glimmer of a few bulbs. Tables and chairs stood stacked against walls, clearly not arranged for any event at this hour. Her heels made a soft echo across the polished floor. A chill ran down her spine. Silence clung to every corner. Carefully, she edged toward the center of the room, searching for any sign of the person who had summoned her. But there was no one, only looming shadows. She swallowed hard, suddenly wishing she hadn't come alone. "Jasmine?" A voice hissed from behind a tall pillar. Instinct made her gasp and wheel around, her clutch held tight against her chest as if it could shield her. To her profound relief, Aaron emerged from the darkness, dressed in a simple button-down and dark trousers. The tension on his face matched hers. "What are you doing here?" she whispered fiercely. "You could be seen." He gestured for her to keep her voice down. "I got a note like yours," he explained, fishing a slip of paper from his pocket. "Someone wanted me to come here too. Said they have proof about the twins, about everything." His eyes were filled with apprehension and anger. "I wasn't about to let you walk into this trap on your own." Her heart hammered with conflicting emotions, relief that he had come, resentment that her risk might double if they were both found out. "We need to be careful," she breathed. "This might be blackmail." Aaron nodded, turning his head to sweep the room with a keen gaze. Chairs were stacked by the walls, their metal legs echoing faintly whenever someone brushed past. The swirling reflection of dim chandelier lights gave the space an eerie glow. They stood side by side, scanning the emptiness. Then, near the far end of the hall, a figure stepped out from behind a pillar. The person wore a brimmed hat, face partially obscured. Jasmine's stomach tightened. A series of quick footsteps behind them alerted her to a second presence, a tall figure in a dark coat, blocking their retreat. Trapped between two unknowns, Aaron guided Jasmine protectively behind him. "You called us here?" Aaron challenged the first figure, voice echoing in the hushed expanse. "Show yourself." Slowly, the figure lifted their head, revealing a faint smirk. "Let's just say I represent certain interests. You're harboring a secret, Mr. Parker. 2 of them, in fact. Very young secrets." The words rang with thinly veiled menace. Aaron bristled. "What do you want?" "First," came the low reply, "I want a substantial sum to keep those secrets quiet. Second, I want the evidence Ms. Hayes holds regarding certain board members' dealings. Hand it over and no one ever hears about these children." Jasmine felt a surge of anger. "You think you can just bully us into giving you everything? Who sent you?" A chuckle rolled out from behind the brim of the hat. "You're hardly in a position to demand answers, Ms. Hayes. If you don't comply, the media gets a juicy story about the billionaire CEO and his illegitimate twins, and you lose any chance of securing investors. Your designs will be worthless if you're labeled a scandal risk, and Mr. Parker's empire will start to crumble the moment his biggest shareholders lose faith." Aaron's hands curled into fists. 1,000 questions bombarded his mind. Who was pulling the strings? Why reveal themselves like this? But fear for Jasmine and the children overshadowed everything. He took a step forward. "If you threaten my family, you're making the biggest mistake of your life." "That's bold talk," the figure said, lifting a gloved hand. On signal, the second stranger, the tall one behind them, struck out. Aaron tried to dodge, barely missing a blow to his shoulder. Jasmine gasped, stumbling backward to avoid the struggle. Aaron lashed out with surprising force, grabbing the henchman's arm and twisting, but he was outnumbered. The first figure rushed to assist, and soon Aaron was grappling with both in a flurry of muffled footsteps and short, sharp grunts. Jasmine stood frozen by panic before instinct spurred her to action. She picked up a folded chair that had been left at the edge of the room and swung it, trying to break their hold on Aaron. The commotion echoed in the cavernous hall, scraping chair legs and shouted curses. One blow managed to graze Aaron's cheek, leaving him reeling. But a surge of adrenaline kept him upright. He kicked out, forcing one attacker to stumble, then seized the chance to break free. Lights flickered, then dimmed, as though triggered by the scuffle. Somewhere distant, a hotel staff alarm bell started chiming in confusion. Jasmine's ears rang with the echo. She noticed a glint of metal in one attacker's hand, some kind of baton. Her heart lurched. If Aaron took a direct hit from that, he'd be seriously hurt. "Stop!" she yelled, voice echoing. "Enough!" Another clang of metal rang as Aaron blocked the baton with a desperate twist. He managed to elbow one of them, sending the figure staggering. In that moment, the second figure realized hotel security was closing in. "Let's go," a harsh whisper hissed. In a flash, both attackers darted away, leaving Aaron breathing hard, shirt half torn, blood trickling from a cut near his temple. Jasmine rushed to his side. "Are you all right?" Her voice trembled, panic swirling in her eyes. He wiped the back of his hand across the small wound, wincing at the sting. "I'll live," he muttered, grimacing at the fresh bruise forming on his shoulder. The overhead lights suddenly blazed back on, flooding the hall with bright illumination. Several uniformed hotel staff and a night manager barreled in, halting at the scene. They found Jasmine clutching Aaron's arm, both looking shaken in the middle of disarray, chairs knocked over, scuff marks on the polished floor. The night manager's eyebrows shot up. "Mr. Parker? Miss? What on earth happened here?" His eyes jumped between the battered chairs and the blood on Aaron's face. More staff gathered behind him, their curious gazes locked on the pair. Jasmine gripped Aaron's hand for support, chest heaving. It was obvious they'd been in a fight, and the secrecy they so desperately needed was now in jeopardy. Aaron could already see the exchange of startled glances among the staff. Whispers would soon ripple through the hotel corridors. The hall lights flare on as the night manager arrives, demanding explanations. Too many witnesses, too many questions. The night manager's urgent gaze darted between Aaron and Jasmine, his expression tight with alarm and curiosity. Chairs lay scattered across the polished floor of the crystal hall, and Aaron was clearly wounded, his knuckles scraped, a thin line of blood crusting near his temple. Jasmine stood by his side, eyes still wide with the aftershock of what had just happened. Silence lingered in the bright overhead light that had flickered on moments before, exposing the mess they had hoped to hide. Aaron gently let go of Jasmine's hand, stepping forward with an air of practiced composure. "It was just a misunderstanding," he said, voice low and steady. "We came down to discuss an urgent matter, and things got a little out of hand." The manager glanced at the knocked-over chairs, the scuff marks, the thin smear of blood on the floor. His frown deepened. "This looks more like a fight than a misunderstanding, Mr. Parker. Should we call the authorities?" Jasmine's pulse quickened. The last thing they needed was a formal report that could end up splashed all over the media. Aaron seemed to sense her dread. He shook his head firmly, forcing a neutral smile. "No police needed. My security team will handle it internally, and will see to any medical attention if necessary. I'll make sure the hotel is compensated for any damage." It was a bribe, delivered with the smoothness of someone accustomed to damage control. The manager hesitated, lips parted as though on the verge of protest, but eventually he allowed his professional instincts to guide him. "Very well, sir," he said. "But we must ensure the safety of our guests. If anything else occurs—" "It won't," Aaron assured, cutting him off gently. He turned to Jasmine, pressing a hand to her back and steering her toward the exit. Staff still lingered at the doorway, jaws set tight in disapproval. She could feel their questions following them down the hallway like a trail of sparks ready to ignite rumors. By the time they reached the lobby, people were already whispering. Some recognized Aaron as the billionaire CEO hosting the summit. Others noted Jasmine's tense posture and the blood staining the cuff of his dress shirt. He guided her through the crowd quickly, keeping his head down. In the corner of his vision, he caught flashes of phone cameras. The hush that followed them felt thick with suspicion. Once outside of prying eyes, they parted ways. Jasmine fled back to her suite. Aaron ducked into a secluded restroom near the conference rooms. Alone in the brightly lit marble bathroom, Aaron finally took a moment to inspect his bruised face. His reflection stared back, the man in the mirror showing fatigue etched into every line. The cut near his temple wasn't deep, but it stung. It would be an ugly purple bruise by morning. He could already see the swelling. He exhaled sharply, frustrated that everything was unraveling so quickly. A small beep from his phone tugged him away from his reflection. He checked to find a text from his personal assistant. "Heard there was trouble. Shareholders are whispering. Are you okay?" Aaron forced himself to type a curt reply. "I'm fine. Meeting in an hour. Keep it quiet." He splashed his face with water, then pressed a cold towel against the swelling. He had no time to linger. The summit's next big session loomed, and he couldn't appear weak. Meanwhile, Jasmine burst into her suite, heart pounding. The twins were asleep in their cribs, the soft rise and fall of their chests, a comforting reminder of what truly mattered. She found her babysitter dozing on the armchair. Before she could say a word, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. She lifted it with trembling hands. "Your children aren't safe. Meet our demands or else." Her blood ran cold. Fear gave way to anger. She noticed the babysitter stirring awake and quickly forced a neutral expression, saying only, "Thank you. I'll be fine now. You can go." The older woman, oblivious to the drama unfolding, took the offered payment and stepped out quietly. The door shut with a click. Jasmine hurried to her laptop, determined to see if she could recover any of her corrupted jewelry files. She tapped the keys, staring at the screen's flicker. The system booted slowly, acting like it had been tampered with, perhaps by whoever was behind these threats. Anxious frustration spilled over into tears as she realized the portfolio for her investor meeting had been partially erased. She dug through cloud backups, searching for old versions of the files. Every second she spent on it increased her sense of being watched. A faint sniffle escaped her. The corridor's chaos, the blackmail threats, the possibility of her children being harmed, it was too much. She had spent so long trying to remain composed for their sake, but now a trembling wave of helplessness hit her. The twins slept peacefully, unaware of the storm swirling around them. Guilt gnawed at her for dragging them into this tension, even though she had done everything in her power to protect them. At the same time, Aaron was seated in the summit's main conference room, the lights blazing overhead, an expectant row of executives waiting for his pep talk. He rolled his shoulders to ease the stiffness from the fight. The hush in the air told him all eyes were on him, ready to pick up on any sign of distress or weakness. But he projected an aura of calm and professionalism, launching into a summary of the day's schedule, new partnerships on the horizon, financial goals. Still, an underlying strain colored his voice. Once the meeting wrapped up, a handful of executives approached with concern. "You sure you're good?" one asked, eyeing the bruise that foundation makeup only half concealed. Aaron waved off the question with a practiced laugh, attributing it to a minor accident. Yet he felt the employee's skepticism. The tension in the hotel had become palpable, and he knew it was only a matter of time before more rumors spread. After the meeting, he slipped away to his office suite, locked the door behind him, and sagged against the wall. His phone glowed with notifications, some from board members, some from unknown numbers. He scrolled through them until one message, from an anonymous sender, caught his eye. "Tell your designer friend we're done waiting." Anger flared in him. These people were targeting Jasmine and the children like pawns in a corporate game. With firm resolve, he decided to check on Jasmine. He walked briskly to her floor, ignoring the knots in his stomach. At her door, she answered with a grim set to her jaw, a laptop clutched in her arms. "I tried salvaging my designs. Most of them are gone," she said, her voice raw. "And I just got another threat. It's about the kids." Aaron stepped inside, gently closing the door. The twins were awake now, fussing for attention. The moment he locked eyes with them, a powerful protectiveness surged through him. "We can't let these people corner us," he said quietly. Maybe we need to consider telling the truth before it's used against us." She stared at him, tears welling. "Do you have any idea what that would do to your reputation, and to my chance of ever being taken seriously again? People will call me every name under the sun. They'll say I had children with the boss for money or influence. Investors might dismiss me." His expression softened. "And if we keep them hidden, it's only a matter of time before someone uses them as leverage. We can't have them living in fear." He reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not saying we do it right this second, but it's an option on the table." She let out a shuddering exhale. Their eyes locked for a moment, a silent exchange passing between them, regret for what had gone unspoken in the past, the weight of the present threat, and a glimmer of hope that they might handle it together. A distant chime sounded from the hallway. Aaron glanced at the clock. "I have to head down soon," he said. "Press is everywhere, waiting for the big announcements. Do you have a plan for your investor showcase?" Jasmine shifted the laptop under her arm, shaking her head. "I'm trying to piece it together from memory. I might only have rough sketches, but I'll manage. I have to." There was fierceness in her voice despite the fear. He nodded. "I'm rooting for you, and I'll make sure security keeps an extra eye on this floor. No one gets near those kids." Just as he said it, they heard footsteps in the corridor. A slow, measured pace, followed by a knock at the door. They shared a look of alarm. Aaron motioned for her to wait, then cracked it open. In the threshold stood Gerald Thurman, arms folded, a polished half-smile on his face. "Aaron," Thurman drawled, "I was hoping we could chat. I hear you've been quite busy. And Ms. Hayes—" He leaned forward, peering inside. "Didn't realize you two were so well acquainted." Aaron held the door firm, placing himself between Thurman and Jasmine. "State your business," he said coldly. Thurman lifted a brow. "I just wanted to give a friendly reminder that the shareholders are watching every move you make. Sometimes family obligations can complicate a man's focus." His gaze swept the room, lingering pointedly where Jasmine stood. "People talk, you know. Wouldn't want any nasty surprises to come out at the wrong time." Aaron's jaw clenched. He resisted the urge to slam the door in Thurman's face. Thurman gave a thin smile. "Best of luck with that big event," he said, then turned on his heel and sauntered away. When Aaron shut the door, Jasmine shook her head, face pale. "He knows," she whispered. Aaron rubbed at his bruised temple. "He's either behind these threats, or he's working with those who are," he said. "My assistant sent me a note earlier saying they found a link between Thurman and the blackmailers. It's all connected." He paced to the cribs and looked down at the twins, who gazed up with innocent curiosity. No matter the swirling drama beyond this suite, these little ones had no idea their existence could topple a billionaire's empire. Jasmine stepped up beside him, pressing a gentle hand to the back of one child's head, smoothing the soft curls. 1,000 fears swarmed her mind, but a maternal resolve shone in her eyes. "We have so little time before everything goes public. If I fail to present my designs, I lose my future. If you get exposed, you risk your entire company." He nodded. "One way or another, the clock is ticking. We need to be ready for whatever hits us next." Those words rang in her ears even after he left, the door snapping shut behind him. She tried to calm her breathing as she gathered her scattered notes. She had to believe there was a solution, a way to stand tall without sacrificing the children's safety. But for now, all she could do was wait, anticipate, and try to cling to the rapidly fraying edges of her life. The hush of the evening settled on the corridor, and Jasmine was about to put the twins to bed when her phone buzzed. An unknown number appeared on the screen. She hesitated, heart thudding, then accepted the call. A faint, distorted voice whispered, "Tell Aaron the clock is ticking. If he won't talk, we will." Jasmine receives a call from an unknown number, a voice whispering, "Tell Aaron the clock is ticking. If he won't talk, we will." Jasmine paced the length of her suite, phone clutched in a trembling hand. The call still echoed in her ears, a distorted voice warning her that time was running out for Aaron to speak, or the blackmailers would make everything public. Her heart hadn't stopped pounding since. In one of the cribs, James let out a whimper that broke through her thoughts. She rushed over and picked him up, murmuring gentle comforts, but her mind spun with dread. She could almost feel the seconds ticking away. Hours later, the morning arrived with an undercurrent of unease. The Royal Pearl's grand foyer looked dazzling, fresh bouquets arranged on marble tables, glossy floors reflecting guests in tailored suits. But beneath the glamour, tension simmered. Journalists and camera crews hovered near the entrance, hungry for any interesting angle on the high-stakes investor summit. Aaron Parker's name was on everyone's lips, some praising his visionary leadership, others sensing a story in the swirling rumors of late-night commotions. In the center of the bustle, a small stage had been set up for the official launch speech. Aaron was due to speak at noon, unveiling a critical project that could secure or shatter his company's future. He arrived at the foyer, shoulders set in a show of confidence, but his face was pale with worry he tried to mask. At his elbow, his assistant kept whispering last-minute updates about the schedule, which dignitaries had arrived, which journalists were asking pointed questions. Aaron nodded automatically, scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble, particularly for the menacing presence that had threatened him days before. Jasmine stood off to one side, half hidden behind a tall vase of flowers. She wore a simple yet elegant outfit, hoping not to attract too much attention. She watched Aaron approach the podium, arms folded to steady her nerves. A hush settled over the foyer when he raised a hand to speak. Microphones bristled in front of him like small, eager creatures. Cameras began to click. "Good afternoon," he said, his deep voice carrying across the room. He thanked the gathered investors and media for attending, then launched into a smooth recap of the summit's goals. At least, it sounded smooth to anyone who didn't know the turmoil churning behind his practiced smile. Jasmine felt her pulse hammer in her throat. She couldn't forget the phone call that had rattled her last night. "Tell Aaron the clock is ticking. If he won't talk, we will." She and Aaron had spent the early morning texting each other about it, deciding he should try to act normal during his big speech, though how anyone could appear calm under such pressure was beyond her. As he spoke, Jasmine noticed a figure slip through the crowd. A person in a black suit, face unfamiliar, moved gracefully near the stage, brushing against Aaron's shoulder as if by accident. Aaron stopped mid-sentence, looking slightly startled. The figure was gone in seconds, but the gesture left behind a folded piece of paper in Aaron's hand. Jasmine watched him tuck it hastily into his pocket, face tightening. He cleared his throat and continued, but the edge in his tone made her skin prickle. When the speech ended, polite applause rippled through the crowd. Journalists shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Aaron offered curt smiles and gestures of thanks, but kept his head lowered. Making a quick exit, he disappeared behind a pair of velvet curtains that partitioned off a service corridor. Sensing his need for support, Jasmine hurried around the crowd, slipping into the same narrow hall a few seconds later. She found him leaning against a wall, staring at the note he'd been handed. "What does it say?" she asked quietly, stepping closer. Aaron exhaled, passing her the paper. A single sentence in bold ink read, "Midnight, or we go public. Be ready to pay." Beneath it was the image of a camera lens, a not-so-subtle hint they had photographic or video evidence. Jasmine's hand shook. "They're giving you a deadline," she whispered, feeling trapped in a nightmare. "They want money, or the truth about the twins, and that evidence we found will be splashed everywhere." His gaze flicked to her, torn between rage and worry. "I won't give in," he muttered. "But I won't let you and the boys be in danger either. We have to find a way to expose whoever's behind this before it destroys us." Before they could plan, the echo of footsteps drew their attention. They turned to see Gerald Thurman standing at the corridor's entrance, flanked by a tall, imposing bodyguard. The overhead lights cast shadows across Thurman's face, but the smugness in his smile was unmistakable. Aaron's voice dropped an octave. "Back off, Thurman. I'm not in the mood for your games." Thurman stepped forward, the bodyguard a solid presence just behind him. "Such hostility," he purred. "I hear you're being squeezed for hush money. Let me guess. Proof of an unexpected family arrangement?" His gaze flitted to Jasmine. "And let's not forget that pesky folder of incriminating documents Ms. Hayes once stumbled upon." Jasmine's cheeks warmed with indignation. "So it is you. You're working with whoever's blackmailing us. Why? More leverage in the boardroom?" Thurman gave an elegant shrug. "Let's just say I have associates who see the advantage in knocking Aaron down a peg or two. Corruption sells headlines, and a hidden family is irresistible scandal material. One way or another, Parker, you'll pay." He smiled coldly. "Or lose everything." Aaron lunged forward, fists clenched, but the bodyguard blocked him with a swift move. Tension crackled in the narrow hallway. Nearby staff, drawn by the raised voices, gathered at a distance. Some started filming on their phones. Jasmine's eyes darted around, dread filling her at the sight of cameras capturing every moment. "You want to threaten me in private?" Aaron growled. "Fine, but do it on your own time, not here in front of half the hotel." Thurman looked amused. "I don't recall you being in a position to dictate terms," he said smoothly. "Just know this. The next few hours could see your empire crumble. All it takes is one leak to the press about your, shall we say, personal indiscretions. The word indiscretions made Jasmine bristle. The twins were more than that. They were children, a family. She'd had enough. "You're disgusting," she spat. "Going after innocent kids for the sake of your corporate power trip." He raised an eyebrow. "Call it business, Ms. Hayes. You've always been talented, but naive. Did you really think you could hide those boys forever?" Anger finally boiled over. Aaron shoved the bodyguard aside, hands slamming into Thurman's shoulders. Thurman stumbled back, colliding with a row of housekeeping carts. Immediately, the bodyguard threw a block at Aaron, sending them both tumbling into a decorative vase. The clang of porcelain hitting marble made onlookers gasp. Jasmine jumped back, heart in her throat. This scuffle was no longer private. Cameras flashed incessantly, capturing every grunt and lunge. A small crowd had formed, hungry for drama. Among them were a few paparazzi who recognized Aaron and screamed questions. "Is it true you have secret kids? Are you hiding them in the hotel?" The bodyguard's strength overwhelmed Aaron, pushing him hard against a display of flowers. The arrangement toppled, water splashing across the floor. Thurman straightened, face red with anger. "You're only making this worse," he hissed. Suddenly, Aaron's personal security rushed in, trying to separate them. The hallway became a flurry of shouts, camera flashes, and shoving bodies. Jasmine watched in horror as Aaron was nearly pinned by the larger man, his arm twisted at an awkward angle. She forced herself into the fray, grabbing the bodyguard's shoulder. In the chaos, she got elbowed aside, stumbling into the arms of a hotel employee. Her mind reeled. This was exactly the type of public meltdown they'd hoped to avoid. The rumor mill would devour these images of Aaron brawling with a rival. Worse, the insinuation about hidden children was now tossed out in front of phones and cameras, a morsel of scandal no tabloid could resist. Hotel security finally overpowered Thurman's man, wrenching him away from Aaron. Aaron slumped against the wall, chest heaving, his hair disheveled and the bruise on his temple throbbing anew. Jasmine rushed to him, face contorted with fear and frustration. Around them, the crowd's frenzy continued, everyone straining for a better view. She could see heartbreak written across his features as he realized how thoroughly they'd been set up. Their plan to keep things quiet, to deal with blackmail and rival shareholders discreetly, it was all going up in flames. Another handful of paparazzi jostled forward, snapping shots while peppering them with relentless questions. Aaron squeezed Jasmine's hand and together they pushed through the gawking throng. They retreated down a side corridor, hearts hammering. Hotel security formed a barrier to block further pursuit, but the damage was done. They found a small service elevator and darted in, the doors sliding shut on a wave of clamor. Inside, Jasmine leaned against Aaron, tears welling in her eyes. "This is out of control," she managed, voice trembling. He nodded numbly, still gulping air. "Someone on my own team must have tipped Thurman off," he murmured. "He always shows up at exactly the worst moment. There's no other way he'd know where to corner us." They both stood there, drained and shaken, as the elevator rattled to an upper floor. For a moment, neither knew what to say. Every plan they'd tried to piece together had been shredded by betrayal and blackmail. At last, the doors opened onto a deserted corridor. They slipped out, gazing at each other in silent worry. Jasmine's phone chimed. She glanced down, her face going pale. She turned the screen to Aaron, revealing a bright red headline from a leading tabloid. "CEO with a secret family?" Rumors explode at high-stakes summit. It was only a teaser, but it already promised a bombshell story. Aaron's breath caught in his throat, dread sinking in. He reached out to steady himself against the wall, eyes flicking from the phone to Jasmine. Their worst fear had come true. The press had seized on the rumor. This was no longer a private crisis. It was about to go wide for all the world to see. A push alert hits phones across the hotel. A tabloid has just published a teaser article hinting that the CEO with a secret family is among the summit's top hosts. Phones all across the Royal Pearl chimed with notifications, the distinct sound of fresh headlines pinging like distant alarms. Guests paused mid-conversation to glance at their screens. Investors and staff exchanged urgent whispers. As the bright lobby filled with hushed tension, it became obvious that the scandal teased by the tabloids was now on everyone's mind. Those who hadn't yet heard the rumor soon learned it from murmured questions. Is it true? Did Aaron Parker really hide a family? Up on the 21st floor, Jasmine locked her suite door and peered through the peephole. The hallway was still for the moment, but she could sense a storm gathering. She braced a chair against the doorknob, a flimsy obstacle but enough to buy her a few seconds if anyone tried barging in. The twins played on the carpet, unaware of the swirling chaos beyond. Jules fumbled with a plush toy, while James gurgled happily, banging on a box of crayons. Jasmine turned to the large windows that overlooked the city skyline. She noticed a few paparazzi drones buzzing outside, like mechanical bees searching for honey. The curtains were already drawn, but she inched them even closer, a spike of anxiety gripping her chest. Her heart pounded at the thought of intruders capturing an image of the children. She had rarely felt so helpless or exposed. A knock at the door startled her. She froze, heart hammering as she took careful steps forward. "Who is it?" she called, trying not to sound frightened. "It's Aaron," came a familiar voice through the wood. Relief flooded her. She unblocked the chair, opened the door, and ushered him in. He slipped through, glancing over his shoulder before shutting it quickly. His face was set in grim lines and shadows clung under his eyes. He took in the sight of the twins who had scrambled up to see who'd arrived and let out a quiet sigh. "They're starting to swarm," he said, voice tight. "Hotel security is scrambling to keep the paparazzi out. Some tried to sneak up the service elevator, and a few staff are complaining that reporters bribed them for any clue about your room number." Jasmine hugged her arms to her chest. "We can't stay here much longer if this escalates. I can't keep the twins locked away like this." He nodded, raking a hand through his hair. The phone in his pocket vibrated constantly. Each time, he pulled it out to see yet another demand from investors or a link to a new headline. "It's insane out there. My office lines are jammed with calls from shareholders. Some want an explanation. Others threaten to drop out of the next project. They all sense blood in the water." She lowered her gaze. "And we're the reason why, aren't we?" Aaron shook his head, stepping around the toys on the floor. "Don't. This isn't on you. It's because Thurman and his allies are using every tool they have to force me out. Our kids just became the perfect weapon." Outside, raised voices echoed in the hallway. Jasmine tensed. Two men argued in harsh whispers, feet scuffling against the carpet. Aaron peeked through the door's peephole and sighed in frustration. "They're reporters, or maybe staff being grilled for info," he muttered. "Either way, it's not safe. We're under siege. Even security can't hold them all back forever." Her mind jumped to the file of evidence she'd once shown him. Documents implicating certain board members in fraud. She had kept it tucked inside her luggage, guarded and out of sight. A horrible thought struck her. If these people were desperate enough to blow open the twins' existence, they might try to steal or destroy the damning paperwork. She glanced over at her suitcase in the corner. "They might be looking for that folder," she murmured. "If they can get rid of it, they remove one more threat." Aaron pressed his lips together. "My assistant found more emails today linking Thurman's side to the blackmail attempts. They need to discredit me enough that I can't counter their corruption claims. And exposing the kids is just a start." A wave of despair washed over her. "Maybe I should just give up the rest of my pitch," she said, voice shaking. "Cancel the meeting with potential investors. If I go downstairs to that lounge, I'll be ambushed by the press. I'll be labeled an opportunist who had children with you for money, or a schemer who tried to blackmail you. My name will be ruined." Aaron stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't do that. You've spent years refining these designs, working in secret to build something on your own terms. If you give up now, it's exactly what they want. They'll paint you however suits their agenda. You must show them you're not backing down." Her eyes flicked to the twins, who had begun to giggle at each other. Jules waved a crumpled piece of paper in James's face, and the two burst into peals of laughter. The sweet, clear sound took the edge off the tension in the room. For a brief moment, Jasmine felt a surge of warmth in her chest, a reminder of what truly mattered. Aaron seemed to feel it too. A tired smile graced his lips. He knelt down, letting the children tug on his sleeve. "I'm sorry I wasn't there from the start," he said softly, addressing both Jasmine and the toddlers. "All this time you've been dealing with the fallout alone. Now I see how wrong I was, back then and even recently, pretending I could juggle everything and keep control of a situation this big." Jasmine's hand drifted to his shoulder. "I'm sorry too," she whispered. "There were times I could have pushed harder to contact you, but I let your staff and all those walls keep me out. Part of me was afraid of losing what little I had if I confronted you outright." He rose slowly, his eyes meeting hers. "We can't fix the past, but we can decide the next step." His words were quiet but resolute. I care about you and the twins, more than I can explain. If we keep hiding, we'll remain at the mercy of these threats. Maybe it's time to come clean on our own terms." She inhaled sharply. "You mean a public statement? Admitting you're their father, that we—" He nodded, gaze steady. "An official press conference planned with my PR team. We'll put it all out there, along with an announcement about your new jewelry line framed as a partnership. If we control the narrative, the blackmailers lose some of their power." His next words sounded measured, as though carefully chosen. "It's a risk, but continuing like this is unbearable. We'll always be looking over our shoulders." Jasmine's stomach twisted at the thought of exposing the twins to the public eye. But the alternative was no better: skulking in hotel rooms, living in constant fear of paparazzi. After a pause, she gave a small, determined nod. "All right, let's do it. But only if we can ensure the kids' safety and future. No more stepping on eggshells." Aaron exhaled in relief. "I'll talk to my PR experts today. We'll do a carefully orchestrated conference, highlight your designs, show we're building something positive. It might even help your pitch. Investors love authenticity if it's presented the right way." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "Let's hope so. Otherwise, we're about to hand them the perfect scandal on a silver platter." Just then, Aaron's phone buzzed. He answered it with a curt greeting. Jasmine watched his face grow grim. He ended the call and turned to her, eyes dark. "That was my assistant. Thurman's camp got wind I'm planning a press statement soon. They're in panic mode. Might try another sabotage or release half-truths to discredit me first." She bit her lip. "We have to move quickly then. The more time we give them, the more damage they'll do." He glanced around the suite. "Let's plan for tomorrow morning. I'll handle the logistics. Lights, stage, a press invitation. I'll make sure it's as controlled as possible. But in the meantime, watch your back. There's talk of suspicious individuals snooping around the babysitter's post. We can't underestimate them." Her expression hardened. "They tried sabotaging my laptop, messing with my designs. If they're creeping near the cribs, I won't forgive them." A mother's protectiveness glowed in her eyes. Despite the intensity, Aaron's chest warmed with admiration. In that moment, he realized just how strong Jasmine truly was. She'd raised 2 children in secrecy, fended off blackmailers alone, and still managed to polish her craft. He stepped nearer, voice gentle. "You've done more than most could manage. I promise, once this is over, we'll create a safer world for the twins. And for you." She blinked back tears, nodding as she reached for his hand. Together, they made a silent vow to meet this challenge head-on, no matter the cost. For a few seconds, their focus rested on the children, who chattered happily. That innocent laughter reminded them both of what was truly at stake. Hours slipped away in a blur of phone calls and hushed conversations. Aaron arranged a private meeting with a handful of PR consultants. They huddled in his executive suite, sketching out how to present the situation to the media without crumbling under scandal. Key points included acknowledging paternity, highlighting Jasmine's designs, and exposing the blackmail attempts to turn the narrative into one of empowerment instead of shame. But as word leaked that Aaron planned to speak publicly, tensions throughout the hotel soared. His security detail reported back, "The paparazzi are doubling in number. They've even posted people outside the loading bay." Meanwhile, Jasmine received frantic texts from her friend, urging her to be cautious. A neighbor from her old neighborhood claimed journalists had shown up asking questions. Everyone, it seemed, wanted a piece of the story. Late that night, after finalizing the next day's event, Aaron returned to Jasmine's door to confirm final details. She answered with the twins in her arms, both sleepy and yawning. He smiled, exhaustion clear on his face. "The press conference is set for 10 in the morning in the main ballroom. You'll get a chance to introduce your collection right after I speak. Sound good?" She shifted Jules into a more comfortable hold. "As good as it can be under the circumstances. I'm nervous." He gently brushed his hand over James's head. "Me too. But at least this way, the truth comes from us, not them. We do it right. Maybe the world sees a story of family and partnership rather than just gossip." Jasmine's eyes flicked between him and the children. Despite the wave of dread she felt, there was also a flicker of hope. "I guess we have no choice but to trust that honesty might save us." Aaron nodded and glanced at his phone. Midnight approached. The corridor outside was eerily quiet. Most of the journalists had retreated for now to plan their coverage for morning. He met Jasmine's gaze, his voice hushed. "No turning back." He was about to say more when his phone vibrated again. Tired of the constant interruptions, he nearly ignored it, but the text on the screen made him pause. "If you go on stage with this, you'll lose it all. Family, fortune, everything." A chill slithered down his spine. He looked up at Jasmine and the sleepy twins, realization heavy in his chest. Another threat, more intimidation from those who wanted him silent. But seeing her weariness and the children's sleepy curiosity, he knew there was no backing down. A text message arrives on Aaron's phone. "If you go on stage with this, you'll lose it all. Family, fortune, everything." He looks at Jasmine and the twins, realizing he can't back down. By 9 in the morning, the Royal Pearl's main ballroom was nearly unrecognizable, transformed from a plush, elegant reception space into a buzzing media epicenter. Rows of seats stretched across polished floors, a low-stage platform set with microphones and bright studio lights. Television crews wrestled with cables and cameras, jostling for the best angles. Beyond the large windows, the city skyline gleamed, a silent backdrop to the storm of anticipation inside. Aaron arrived early, stepping in through a side entrance under the protective eyes of his security detail. They guided him down a short backstage corridor that smelled faintly of fresh paint and newly shampooed carpets. His stomach churned with equal parts anxiety and resolve. The threats he'd received the night before still loomed in the back of his mind. "If you go on stage with this, you'll lose it all. Family, fortune, everything." Yet here he was, determined to shine a spotlight on the truth before it was twisted any further. Jasmine paced backstage as well, biting her lower lip. She clutched a slim black folder that contained the salvaged designs for her jewelry line, visual aids she intended to display once Aaron finished speaking. All night, they had rehearsed how this would go. He'd speak first, reveal the truth about the twins, then introduce her. Afterward, they'd present the evidence of corporate fraud, turning the tables on the shadowy rivals who had been blackmailing them. It was a tightrope walk. But done right, they might just emerge stronger. She glanced across the curtain to see rows of reporters chatting, adjusting their microphones or scanning their phones for breaking updates. A hush rippled through the ballroom as more familiar faces arrived, major investors, curious guests, a few skeptical board members. Jasmine scanned the crowd and spotted Gerald Thurman near the front row, arms crossed, expression cold. At his side stood a couple of well-dressed individuals she didn't recognize, though their eyes darted around with the sharpness of predators. They exuded a certainty that something explosive was about to happen. Aaron's personal assistant hovered near the stage steps, typing last-minute instructions onto a tablet. Finally, the house lights dimmed just enough to draw everyone's attention to the small podium on stage. Aaron exhaled a shaky breath, then climbed the steps with measured strides, shoulders back. The room quieted to the soft snap of camera shutters. Anxiety pulsed in the air. "Thank you for coming," Aaron began, voice echoing through the speakers. His gaze swept the audience, lingering momentarily on Thurman's cold stare. He swallowed, pressing forward with the speech they'd carefully composed. "I've invited you here to clarify recent rumors and discuss developments that impact not only my company, but also my personal life. I ask for your patience as I share what needs to be said." A flurry of whispers broke out, reporters shifting in their seats, pens poised. Aaron steadied himself. "For years, I've dedicated myself to building a business that stands for innovation and collaboration, but I've also made mistakes. One of them was not acknowledging two very important people, my twin boys, who deserve more than secrecy." A collective gasp rippled through the room, quickly replaced by a barrage of camera flashes. Aaron pushed through, determination tightening his voice. "Yes, I have two children. Their mother is a talented designer who once worked privately with my company. He paused, letting out a breath. "We had a personal relationship. She left under complicated circumstances, and that separation prevented me from discovering their existence until recently." Chaos threatened to erupt. Reporters shouted questions. "Why didn't you tell anyone? Have you been hiding them on purpose? Are you stepping down as CEO?" The barrage was immediate, hungry, but Aaron raised a hand, waiting for the cameras to settle again. "I should have acknowledged my family sooner," he continued. "I allowed corporate pressures and blind ambition to create distance. Today, I'm rectifying that mistake. Let me introduce the woman whose brilliance brought us all here, Jasmine Hayes." Jasmine's heart pounded as she emerged from backstage. She tried to walk with confidence, folder clutched against her side. The flash of cameras felt like a physical force, making her squint beneath the stage lights. She stepped up to the microphone, breath trembling just enough to catch in her throat. "Thank you," she began softly. "Like Aaron said, I once worked behind the scenes as a designer for his top clients. My goal has always been to launch my own jewelry line, an endeavor I put on hold when I became a mother." She paused, scanning the sea of curious faces. "Today, I stand by Aaron not out of scandal or conspiracy, but out of a desire to move forward with honesty." She flipped open her folder, revealing glossy sketches that she held up so the cameras could catch them. "These are prototypes from my collection, which I'll showcase formally after this conference. My hope is that the story we're sharing will add a layer of authenticity. Jewelry has always been about telling personal stories through precious materials. Mine isn't just about profit. It's about family, truth, and creativity." Applause rippled unevenly. Some looked impressed, others skeptical. Through the bright glare, Jasmine glimpsed a few investors who had once praised her skill. One or two nodded approvingly, while others glowered, arms folded, likely disapproving of the spotlight overshadowing corporate formality. Aaron, standing by her side, cleared his throat. "But there's more we need to address. Something bigger than our private lives. Jasmine is in possession of certain documents that implicate high-level individuals in corporate fraud. These individuals have attempted to blackmail and threaten us, using our private lives as leverage." A collective murmur swept the room, the tension building like static before a storm. Aaron signaled to his assistant, who wheeled out a small metal stand with several sealed files. Cameras clicked frantically. These documents contain evidence of false accounting, insider trading, and other illegal schemes orchestrated by a group of shareholders who used to hold significant sway in my company. They sought to keep Jasmine and me silent, threatening to expose my children unless I cooperated. Jasmine watched the crowd's reaction, shock on some faces, curiosity on others. And in the front row, Thurman rose from his seat with cool deliberation. He yanked off his glasses and addressed the entire room, voice echoing across the space. "This is absurd," he scoffed, striding toward the stage steps. "You're accusing respected members of the board without proof, Parker. I demand you withdraw this nonsense." Aaron stared him down. "It's all here, and it's been filed electronically with the authorities. Trying to dismiss it won't help now." Thurman's lips curled into a sneer. "You think you can waltz onto this stage with a sob story about secret children and fling baseless accusations? You'll bankrupt your own company, and your investors will lose everything." A wave of murmurs swept the audience again. Reporters jumped to their feet, cameras trained on the confrontation. "Sir, are you one of the implicated shareholders?" one journalist cried out. Thurman ignored her, stepping closer to the stage with fists balled at his sides. Aaron's security inched forward, but Thurman's posture wasn't quite an open threat, yet. Jasmine felt her pulse spike. She glanced at Aaron, who seemed equally tense. The glint in Thurman's eyes suggested he wasn't backing down without a fight, at least not verbally. "I built this company from the ground up," Aaron said evenly, though his voice trembled with anger. "I refuse to let your corruption or your intimidation tactics destroy it, and I won't let you use my children as bargaining chips. The proof of your wrongdoing is already out there. Even if I fail in the court of public opinion, the legal system will see everything." A short, caustic laugh escaped Thurman's throat. "You fool!" he spat. "Do you realize how many others are involved? Important people who won't hesitate to shut you down by any means necessary?" His eyes darted to Jasmine. "You should have stayed out of this," he said, voice dropping to a dangerous murmur. Jasmine's heart thudded. The threat was as plain as day. She opened her mouth to retort, but the crowd erupted, journalists shouting questions, flashes flaring from all directions. A few frantic voices. "What do the documents prove?" "Are you stepping down, Mr. Parker?" "Ms. Hayes, how long did you hide the children?" The swirl of noise climbed to a roar. At the sidelines, a cluster of investors stared wide-eyed, uncertain whether to side with Aaron or fear Thurman's wrath. Security guards stepped onto the stage, trying to separate Thurman from Aaron. The tension snapped like a live wire. Someone jostled forward, and, in a flurry, Thurman pushed past a guard, lunging for the files that Aaron's assistant held. Shouts broke out. Cameras wobbled as the press tried to get closer. Aaron quickly blocked Thurman's hand, fists connecting with a dull thump. The mic stand toppled, a loud squeal of feedback piercing the air. A cluster of photographers circled, capturing every grimace, every frantic movement. One of Thurman's associates rushed in, attempting to pry the files off the stand. Security tried to intervene, but the crowd had formed a chaotic knot of bodies and flashing bulbs. Jasmine realized in that instant how easily things could spiral out of control. She ducked away from the scuffle, clutching her folder of designs to her chest. If Thurman's associates snatched the documents, they might destroy crucial evidence. She watched Aaron wrestle one man aside, eyes blazing with a protective fury. Another wave of guards arrived, pulling the combatants apart with firm grips. The collective shouting ricocheted off the ballroom's high ceiling. "Enough!" a commanding voice rang out, one of the uniformed security chiefs pushing through the throng. "This is over!" He yanked Thurman back, pressing him firmly against the side of the stage. Thurman's chest rose and fell, face contorted by rage. He glared daggers at Aaron but seemed momentarily subdued by the line of stern-faced guards. In the midst of the chaos, some guests had fled, while others gawked from a distance. Cameras kept snapping, capturing what would surely be tomorrow's front-page story. Aaron, breathing hard, scanned the room for Jasmine. Relief flooded his face when he spotted her standing near the toppled mic stand. She hurried to him, heart pounding. "Are you okay?" She searched his eyes, noticing fresh bruises on his knuckles. "Fine," he rasped. "Let them take photos. It won't matter soon. We've told everyone the truth, on our own terms." She nodded, gripping his arm. Over near the front row, a journalist stood on her tiptoes, shouting to be heard above the tumult. "Are you officially confirming you have twins, Mr. Parker? Are you and Ms. Hayes in a relationship? What's next for your company?" Aaron glanced at Jasmine. Their eyes held a shared understanding. They couldn't undo this. Everything was out in the open, and the future, though uncertain, would no longer be clouded by secrets. Gathering his remaining composure, he raised his voice to the press. "I'll be answering questions soon, but please, give security time to restore order. For now, know this. My children are my priority, and I stand by Ms. Hayes. We refuse to be blackmailed." Another wave of camera flashes erupted. He felt Jasmine's hand slip into his, the warmth of it grounding him amid the chaos. Together, they descended the stage steps, security forming a protective ring to keep prying microphones at bay. Thurman, pinned in place, spat angry insults at them, but the crowd swallowed his words in a cacophony of raised voices. Reporters lunged for one final question, fans of bright lights following the couple like beacons. The swirling noise became a roar of frantic curiosity. Aaron and Jasmine barely registered it anymore, hearts pounding as they realized the magnitude of what they'd just done. They'd flung open the door to a world of scrutiny, but at least now, no one could twist their story behind closed doors. As the press conference dissolves into chaos, Aaron clasps Jasmine's hand. They lock eyes, knowing the dust hasn't quite settled, but the truth is finally out. Aaron stood in the Royal Pearl's private lounge, gazing out at the city through tall windows that made everything below look small. The tumultuous press conference, with its swirling cameras and frantic questions, was behind them now. Yet his heart was still catching up to all that had happened. The truth was out. He had twin sons, and the woman standing with him, Jasmine Hayes, was both the mother of his children and an extraordinary designer about to reshape his company's future. He glanced at his watch. Less than a day had passed since he and Jasmine had laid their entire story bare for the world. In that short span, every corner of the Royal Pearl felt different. Familiar faces in suits still roamed the halls, but now they offered fleeting smiles or respectful nods, as though they'd witnessed something bigger than a mere scandal. There was a tangible shift in energy, a cautious optimism that maybe the sincerity and bravery Aaron displayed would turn the tide in his favor. The lounge's door slid open, admitting a close friend and ally from the board, an older executive named Miranda, who had known Aaron since his earliest days in business. She carried a sheaf of paper, her lips pressed in a tight but hopeful line. "Good news, I think," she said, setting the documents on a low table. Legal counsel moved quickly. Thurman and his associates have been barred from corporate proceedings. Authorities found enough preliminary evidence to freeze their assets until the investigation's complete. Aaron felt a wave of relief, though the tension in his shoulders didn't vanish altogether. "I appreciate all your help in pulling this off. I know it was a risk supporting me against longtime shareholders." Miranda waved off the thanks. "You did the right thing, Aaron. Standing up for the truth usually has a price, but it's worth paying when families and honest employees are caught in the crossfire." The mention of family drew his eyes across the room. Jasmine stood by the corner, perched on a couch, clutching a tablet that displayed her latest jewelry orders. She was deep in conversation with an investor, someone who'd been entranced by the story of how her designs symbolized resilience and authenticity. The twins were nestled in a temporary playpen nearby, squealing as they discovered new toys. Occasionally, Jasmine glanced over to check on them, her face lighting with an unguarded smile that Aaron found more beautiful than anything he'd seen in years. Miranda followed his gaze and patted Aaron's arm gently. "Go to them. I'll handle the rest of these calls." He nodded, crossing the lounge in a few swift steps. His approach didn't go unnoticed. The investor concluded his chat with Jasmine and excused himself politely, leaving them a moment of quiet. "How are you holding up?" Aaron asked, settling beside her. Her shoulders rose and fell. Tired, grateful, still a bit shocked. She clicked off the tablet screen, folding her hands in her lap. "The backlash hasn't been too harsh so far, but I know it's only been a day. The media's still feverish with curiosity." Aaron reached over, brushing a lock of hair off her forehead. "We'll face it together. And from the early signs, people are responding to our honesty better than I expected." He tapped the tablet. "Did I hear something about new orders?" She gave a small nod, eyes bright. "Quite a few. Investors and potential buyers all seem drawn to the story behind the jewelry. Pieces about family, heartbreak, second chances. They're connecting to the emotional arc." He squeezed her hand. In the background, little James crawled to the edge of the playpen, eyes fixed on Aaron. A burst of tenderness warmed Aaron's chest. The boy reached out, babbling a half-formed word that made Jasmine laugh softly. If life had felt incomplete before, now it brimmed with a sense of purpose, despite the chaos that still lay ahead. A rap on the door frame broke the quiet moment. One of the Royal Pearl's staffers peered in, smiling. "Pardon me, Mr. Parker, Ms. Hayes. There's a group of reporters requesting a follow-up statement in the foyer. They claim they'd like some clarity on the next steps for your company and your, well, family." Aaron exchanged glances with Jasmine. "Ready?" he asked, lifting an eyebrow. She took a breath, pushing down any nerves. "Yes, let's face them." They gathered the twins, James and Jules, and carefully navigated the corridor. Just a few days ago, heading anywhere outside that suite with the children in tow would have been unthinkable. Now it felt oddly liberating to carry them out in the open. The hallway bustled with hotel guests, staff, and the occasional camera operator. Faces lit up with curiosity or faint surprise at the sight of Aaron Parker strolling hand in hand with a woman and two toddlers babbling in their arms. In the foyer, a semicircle of reporters waited, microphones poised. A hush fell when Aaron and Jasmine stepped into view, the children perched against their shoulders. Flashes of light popped from cameras, but the tone was more subdued than at the chaotic press conference. The brunt of the scandal had already broken. Now people wanted to see how this unusual family would move forward. One reporter, a young woman with a press badge pinned to her blazer, spoke gently. "Mr. Parker, Ms. Hayes, can you share how you plan to balance a public role in the corporate world with the private needs of your children?" Aaron shifted James slightly on his hip, ensuring the toddler was comfortable. "Yes, it's a challenge, but we've decided to meet it head-on. The boys' well-being is paramount, so we're arranging childcare that allows them to stay close, especially during critical events. I'll also be stepping back from certain day-to-day operations to ensure I'm present for them." Jasmine took a small step forward, her voice steady despite the bright cameras. "And I'm launching my jewelry brand, Hayes Designs, with the support of Parker's corporate platform. We're developing a partnership that respects our family life while also letting each of us excel in what we do best. It won't always be easy, but we believe transparency is our best defense against rumors and hidden agendas." A murmur of approval swept the reporters. Another question arose. "Ms. Hayes, do you worry about the children's privacy now that you've come forward in such a public way?" She nodded. "Yes, of course I worry. But I'd rather we share the truth openly than let blackmailers or tabloids define our narrative. We'll keep some boundaries, too, and ask for respect around the children's personal lives. They deserve a normal childhood if we can manage it." The foyer filled with a subdued calm, as though even the most hardened journalists sensed this was a genuine moment for a newly united family. One final question. "Mr. Parker, what do you say to your shareholders who might be concerned about the scandal's effect on profits?" A hint of a wry smile crossed Aaron's face. I'd remind them that authenticity and accountability can foster trust, not break it. My leadership may look different going forward, more collaborative, but I believe it will prove stronger than ever. We have ongoing legal action against individuals who committed fraud. The company remains stable and will emerge from this with a clearer conscience and a more inspiring story. With that, he and Jasmine stepped back, politely signaling the end of the impromptu Q&A. Security discreetly ushered the reporters away. A lingering hush fell, replaced by quiet chatter from onlookers who'd gathered at a respectful distance. Some offered encouraging smiles. Others snapped photos from behind potted plants or half-turned shoulders, determined to capture the moment this unconventional family presented themselves to the world. Shortly after, they retreated to a private boardroom where a handful of Aaron's staunchest allies awaited. Celebration mingled with a sense of relief. Congratulatory remarks were shared. Clinks of glasses against a tray of sparkling water. No actual champagne since it wasn't that type of meeting. Jasmine gave a short presentation of her top designs. Despite having lost some original files to sabotage, she had enough new sketches to intrigue potential partners. Investors in the room asked thoughtful questions about brand positioning and price points. And though stress tugged at the corners of Aaron's mind, the meeting flowed with cautious optimism, a sense of forging a path together rather than standing at odds. By evening, the hotel began to settle into a calmer rhythm. The once overwhelming presence of paparazzi outside had dwindled, thanks to the official statements. A few diehards remained, snapping pictures from across the street. But for the moment, the worst of the siege felt behind them. Jasmine changed the twins into comfy pajamas in her suite, reading them a quick story to coax them into sleep. Aaron watched from a nearby armchair, heart full at the sight. Never in his wildest ambitions had he imagined this scene. Two toddlers clinging to the promise of a bedtime story, and the woman who'd once been a secret collaborator now a central figure in his personal life. Once the boys drifted off, Jasmine gently shut the door to the side room. They met in the living area, where the night sky glinted through the windows. The city lights shimmered, casting a soft glow across the furniture. Aaron exhaled slowly. "We're not finished with the fallout," he admitted. "Lawsuits could follow. The tabloids might keep prying. Our business has a lot of pieces to reassemble. But we're together in this, right?" She laced her fingers through his. "Yes, together. You, me, and the twins. No more hiding." He leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Then let's prepare for the next stage. I think I might actually sleep tonight," he joked weakly. She smiled, exhaustion and relief mingling in her eyes. "Let's hope so." Early the next morning, the Royal Pearl's staff helped them load their luggage into a waiting car. The investor summit had officially concluded, and it was time to move forward with real changes, both in the company and in their personal lives. Standing in front of the hotel's grand entrance, Jasmine cradled James while Aaron held Jules. The doorman smiled in a subdued, respectful way, as though he understood that something meaningful had transpired here beyond mere business deals. Miranda emerged to bid them farewell, giving each child a friendly pat on the head. "Keep me updated, Aaron," she said, her gaze flicking between him and Jasmine. "We've got the board to reorganize, but we're with you." He thanked her, then helped Jasmine settle the twins into car seats. For a moment he lingered by the sleek black vehicle, glancing up at the Royal Pearl's distinctive facade, the same place where he'd first entered the wrong suite and discovered a truth that changed his life. "Sometimes the wrong door is exactly where we're meant to be," he murmured, turning back to see Jasmine watching him fondly. She reached out, squeezing his hand. A breeze drifted across the hotel courtyard, carrying away the last remnants of the tension they had endured. The twins giggled in the back seat, each holding a small plush toy. That gentle sound of childish joy floated through the air, a sign that no matter what storms they faced, this family they'd formed was worth every risk. They climbed in, and the car pulled away from the curb, merging into the flow of traffic. Through the rear window, the Royal Pearl's silhouette receded, that once intimidating building now a silent testament to how a single mistake could lead to an unexpected, beautiful truth. Just before stepping into the car, Aaron glances up at the Royal Pearl and murmurs to Jasmine, "Sometimes the wrong door is exactly where we're meant to be." She squeezes his hand, and the camera pans to the children giggling in the back seat, a family found in the unlikeliest of ways. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.